So here I am thinking to myself, man, ain't no way in hell this show is going to be able to top the Invincible War or Conquest's arrival and the battles between him and Mark. The destruction will never be matched with what we saw in Chicago in Season 1 or the destruction of Thraxa in Season 2, but here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my breakdown of Invincible Season 4, Episode 7, which as of right now might be the most insane episode of the series so far. Look, man, this episode gave us Thragg versus the Coalition, and it was nothing short of epic. And then you go ahead and throw in the end of Viltrum. Oh yeah, this was peak Invincible. Man, we got a lot to discuss, so let's break it all down. Full spoilers ahead. It was at this point that the episode literally punched itself into another gear. As Thragg and Nolan come face to face, Thragg tells Nolan that it pains him of the death of any Viltrumite. It leaves a void inside of him as he does this Dragon Ball Z Avatar Airbender move as he summons the wind around him and he pulls Nolan closer to him, punching Nolan into goddamn space. That moment of him punching Nolan into space again, in my opinion, is the most dominant display of strength that we've ever seen in this show. Now, back to the battle. Before Nolan got punched back into space, Space Racer's helmet gets compromised by getting attacked by 3 Viltrumites, but we see Alan and Zoe help him, and Zoe fixes his helmet, but we see Thragg, who's now ready to get into the more battle. But I will say before moving on, if I were to have a nitpick or like an issue or a complaint about this battle or this episode in general, it's what we just witnessed with Space Racer. I don't know in what world would the Viltrumites, 3 Viltrumites just standing there as his mask is all destroyed. Why wouldn't they attack him, kill him, I know they can't touch his weapon, but why would the Viltrumites just stand there waiting for someone to come fight them? It was a weird moment. Again, it was very quick, obviously. I know, it's a split decision, but we know how quick Viltrumites think, and they're trained warriors. So again, if I had a nitpick, if I had a complaint, it was watching those 3 Viltrumites just stand around Space Racer, knowing how destructive he is, and not just him, but his goddamn weapon. So I thought that moment, again, it was literally, 2 seconds, but it was a moment that stood out to me because everything else in this episode was pretty much damn perfect. But that moment there did catch me because I'm like, what in the world are these Viltrumites doing? But now our little friend Oliver's inexperience finally catches up to him as Oliver doesn't listen and tries to land a punch on Thragg, but he ends up catching his punch, breaking Oliver's hand. He hits him and knocks off his piece of his jaw, and he rips off his arm all at the same damn time. Now, Mark sees this and goes after Oliver, but Thragg grabs Mark and tosses him in the opposite direction. Thragg tells Mark that Oliver was a failure, he's not his brother, as Mark responds by saying that, I already killed Conquest and I'm gonna kill you too, as Thragg looks at him and says, oh yeah? Well, show me what you got. All right, again, I want to reiterate that this episode already was just operating on all levels. It was amazing, it was epic, it was incredible. But then somehow it managed to go beyond that, which is just insane to me. We see Mark throws a haymaker at Thragg, and Thragg headbutts the punch without moving an inch. And then to make matters even better, the frame capturing Thragg's face, and it shows him as a literal goddamn demon, and that was more frightening than Satan that we met in episode 4.
I'm not impressed.
Meanwhile, Nolan's still flying in space after getting punched, but he finally slows down. He sees Oliver, but at the same time, he notices a window of opportunity. The others still in battle. Battle Beast and Krieg briefly fight. We got Zoe runs out of the bug ammo, and poor Mark is being tossed around like a rag doll by Thragg. Now, speaking of being tossed around, we see my man Battle Beast tries to hit Thragg, but is told no and gets his jetpack ripped off and tossed into deep space, and he's no longer in the battle. Now, Nolan, back in action, rallies the others and tells them to charge Viltrum, which is now at its most vulnerable moment. Mark realizes what Nolan wants to do, and surprisingly, he says no. Like, I'm very surprised why Mark, did he not want to see the planet destroyed? I really wish we could have had a moment to explore that, but obviously they're in the middle of battle. But while that's happening, Nolan orders Space Racer to destroy their planet, and he shoots, and Thragg isn't fast enough to stop him. Nolan, Mark, and Thetis follow the shot into a tight formation as it hits the planet's core, destroying Viltrum. Watching the three of them flying into the planet's core is one of the coolest sequences and one of the most insane moments, in my opinion, of the show. The impact is it just shatters the planet, and not only does the impact overcome the planet's like gravitational energy, but we see their suits being ripped off and they're still flying as the planet is no more. Now, the impact sends everyone flying into space, and Thetis says that this was the only way to show them the truth, as we see everyone, the generals, the soldiers, both sides are just in shock. Now, Thetis calls for a surrender, but out of the rubble, Thragg, with tears in his eyes, screams no and chooses death as he flies directly at Thetis. And remember what I said about Thetis maybe being a threat to Nolan? Well, we see Thragg rips his head from his body, smashing it, avenging his emperor, and immediately goes after Nolan. Now, Mark orders Alan to find his brother as he flies towards Thragg and his father. Thragg beats Nolan as Mark catches them, but is quickly dismissed by Thragg. He says that he was too quick with Thetis, but he won't make that same mistake with Nolan as he hits him with a barrage of punches. Meanwhile, Alan goes 4 against 1 for a little bit, but Zoe and Space Racer help him out as they ultimately retreat back to the ship. Look, man, I love Mark. Invincible's my guy, but this moment was goddamn funny as hell, man. Thragg punches him in the throat and he's like, can't breathe. He's like choking. He's going crazy. And then he chases after Mark. And the look on Mark's face of pure horror as Thragg chases after him. Again, I love you, Mark. I can understand the fear in that moment, but man, that was funny as hell. Now, Thragg catches him, and again, Mark is scared out of his mind, but Nolan punches Thragg away. And as Mark asks his dad, like, how can we beat him, Dad? We see Nolan is about to say his son's name, and he gets his name out, but not in enough time because Thragg goes and does the classic Viltrumite move and slices through Nolan's stomach. And Mark is watching this, thinking that he just witnessed the death of his father, but Thragg immediately headbutts Mark and begins squeezing his eyes and his head. But in an even more shocking move, we see Thragg stops. Thragg sees the pieces of his planet descending into space and all the other dead Viltrumites surrounding him, and he realizes they've already are low in numbers, and he spares Mark. Again, this goes back to what he did in the flashback. This goes back to Viltrum and showing their strength and showing his resistance and being like, again, it is a crazy move, but it makes sense. They need their numbers, right? He's thinking, live to fight another day. I might not be able to get them on my side today, but maybe in the future I can. So it's a crazy move, but it makes sense if you think about it. But we see the rest of the Viltrumites, the handful of Viltrumites there, and we know they still have their reinforcements. They fly off as we see Nolan and Mark float into space after getting beaten near to death. Now, they're eventually found in space as the others are shocked they found them, and they find out that it's been a few weeks as Mark finally wakes up to find his father and Oliver are alive. Now, they can't figure out why they're alive, but their bigger problem is that nobody has an idea where Thragg and the others have gone. As of now, Alan is the leader of the coalitions until they find his replacement, but until then, his first task is to find the Viltrumites. They've seemed to have disappeared, but Mark realizes that they have gone to conquer Earth. So we know it's been a few weeks, which makes you wonder, what has the Viltrumites been doing on Earth for the past few weeks? What's going on with Debbie? What's going on with Eve? Are the Viltrumites just straight up conquering, murdering humans? Or are they trying to blend in because they have to procreate and bring back their people? Because they obviously know that Earth is a place that has the DNA that can procreate their species. So oh boy, I cannot wait to see what's been going on these last few weeks on Earth, and the finale is about to be something special. Now, speaking of special, let me know in the comments below, is this the first episode that didn't have a post-credit scene? Let me know if I'm right, if I'm wrong, but again, we didn't need a goddamn post-credit scene because that episode was freaking awesome. I've pretty much said what I had to say about this episode, but just in case you all don't get the sense of the energy and the vibes that I'm giving off right now, I don't want to speak hyperbole, but I will say for me, this is probably top 3 episodes. Like this episode, opening with the backstory of Thetis and figuring everything out with Thragg and his resistance and him showing a moment of weakness. Again, he vowed to never show that weakness again, but he had a moment of weakness. He didn't investigate, obviously, Thetis and what that led to with his emperor, and then he showed moments of restraint. He showed moments of power. He wanted Nolan to get back into the group. He wanted to have Mark join them, but it was just time to snap, and we saw Listen, the last few weeks, people online have been going crazy. Oh, Thragg's voice sucks. He's not intimidating, blah, blah, blah. Man, shut the hell up. What we saw Thragg do, we've never seen in the show before. The man is a goddamn beast. We literally saw Thragg dismantle Nolan like we never seen before, punching him to the surface of Viltrum, punching him back into space, killing Thetis the way that he did. Thragg, my man, I hope people apologize to you because you show why you're the most toughest, baddest, strongest Viltrumite that we've seen so far in this show. And you know what? I hope people apologize to Lee Pace because he's a great actor. He's great in the role. He showed this level of resilience, loyalty, leadership. I mean, the guy's awesome. Thragg is awesome. This episode is awesome. And I don't know what else to say, but I loved it. With that being said, that will conclude my breakdown of Invincible Season 4, Episode 7. And I want to know what you all thought. Favorite fight, favorite moment, what worked, what didn't work, what do you all hope to see in the finale? Again, the Viltrumites on Earth. We're going to get another battle. Who's going to win? Who's going to lose? Let's talk about it all in the comments below. Thank you all for watching or listening to this week's breakdown. If you're watching this on YouTube, I appreciate you all. Do me a favor, hit that like button, hit the hype button. Also, share the video, share your thoughts in the comments. And for all things Invincible, The Boys, Daredevil, Euphoria, consider sticking around and subscribing to the channel today. Alrighty, y'all, I cannot wait for the finale. I love this episode. I love this show, and I appreciate all you guys' support. In the meantime, again, we'll be covering The Boys and Daredevil, so stick around and hear my thoughts about the latest episodes from those great shows. But I want to thank you all again. Don't forget, you all are awesome. Stay safe, and I'll see you again soon.